Love's Return. The city of Veritas stood tall, a sprawling metropolis nestled between the high cliffs of the Eastern Range and the azure waters of the Celestine Sea. It was a place where ancient traditions mingled with modern advancements, a city where history was as much a part of daily life as the technological marvels that powered its streets. Among the city's many inhabitants was a woman named Ilara, whose life had been defined by love and the devastating loss that followed. Ilara was known throughout Veritas as a skilled artisan, a master of glasswork whose creations adorned the homes of nobles and commoners alike. Her work was renowned not only for its beauty but for the emotions it seemed to capture: joy, sorrow, hope, and longing, all delicately intertwined in the vibrant hues and intricate patterns of her glass. But what few knew was that Ilara's art was born from a deep well of personal pain, a love story that had ended too soon. Years before, when Ilara was still a young woman, she had fallen in love with a man named Kale. He was a scholar, a man of intellect and curiosity, who had come to Veritas to study the ancient texts housed in the city's great library. From the moment they met, there was a connection between them, a bond that seemed to defy logic and reason. They spent their days exploring the city, discussing philosophy, and dreaming of a future together. It was a love that burned brightly, and for a time, it seemed as though nothing could extinguish it. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Kale was called away to the distant land of Silas, where a great discovery had been made, an ancient ruin that promised to reveal secrets long lost to time. It was an opportunity he could not refuse, a chance to make his mark on the world. Though it pained him to leave Ilara, they both knew that this was his calling. He promised to return, and Ilara, trusting in their love, let him go. The weeks turned into months, and the months into years, but Kale did not return. Letters from Silas grew infrequent, then stopped altogether. Rumors reached Veritas of a great disaster, a catastrophic event that had buried the ruins and all who explored them beneath the earth. Ilara's heart broke, and the light that had once filled her life dimmed. In her grief, Ilara turned to her art. She poured her love, her sorrow, and her longing into every piece she created, as if by doing so, she could keep Kale's memory alive. Her work became her solace, the only way she could cope with the emptiness that had taken hold of her heart. As the years passed, she became a figure of quiet strength in Veritas, respected for her talent but known for the sadness that lingered behind her eyes. Then, one day, a stranger arrived in the city. He was a traveler, a man with a weathered face and eyes that had seen too much of the world. He carried with him a small, ornate box, which he claimed held a gift for Ilara. The news of his arrival spread quickly, and soon the stranger found himself standing at the door of Ilara's workshop, the box held out before him. "Are you Ilara?" the man asked, his voice rough from years of travel. "I am," she replied, her curiosity piqued despite herself. "And who might you be?" "My name is unimportant," the man said, his gaze steady. "But I bring something that belongs to you. A gift, from a man named Kale." At the mention of Kale's name, Ilara felt her heart skip a beat. She had not heard that name spoken aloud in years, and the sound of it brought a rush of memories that she had long tried to bury. "Kale," she whispered, barely able to believe what she was hearing. "How do you know that name?" "I knew him," the man said simply. "He was a good man, a brave man. And before he died, he entrusted this to me, with instructions to bring it to you, no matter how long it took." Ilara's hands trembled as she took the box from the stranger. It was made of dark wood, intricately carved with symbols that she did not recognize, and sealed with a simple latch. She hesitated for a moment, fear and hope warring within her, before she finally opened it. Inside, nestled in a bed of velvet, was a small vial of glass, no larger than her thumb. It was filled with a shimmering liquid that seemed to glow with a light of its own, shifting between shades of blue and green. Next to it was a piece of parchment, yellowed with age, covered in Kale's familiar handwriting. With shaking hands, Ilara unfolded the letter and began to read. "My dearest Ilara, if you are reading this, then it means that I have not returned, and for that, I am truly sorry. There are no words to express the depth of my regret for leaving you, or the sorrow I feel for the pain this will cause you. But I hope that in some small way, this gift will help ease that pain. The vial you hold contains something extraordinary, something I discovered in the depths of the ruin we came to study. It is called the Elixir of Echoes, a substance that, according to the texts we found, can allow a person to hear the voice of a loved one who has passed on. It is not a resurrection, nor does it bring back the dead, but it offers a chance to say goodbye, to speak the words that were left unsaid. I know how much you must have suffered in my absence, and I wish with all my heart that I could be there to comfort you. But perhaps, through this, we can share one last moment together. I leave it to you to decide whether to use it, but know that whatever you choose, my love for you is eternal. Yours always, Kale. Tears streamed down Ilara's face as she finished reading the letter. She clutched it to her chest, overwhelmed by the emotions that surged within her. The love she had thought lost forever had returned to her in this small, fragile vial, offering her a chance to connect with Kale one last time. For hours, Ilara sat in her workshop, the vial and the letter before her, as she struggled with the decision that lay before her. To hear Kale's voice again, to feel his presence, even if only for a moment, was a temptation that was almost too much to bear. But she also feared what it might do to her, whether it would bring her peace or reopen wounds that had only just begun to heal. In the end, it was the memory of Kale's voice, warm and kind, that guided her decision. She carefully uncorked the vial and brought it to her lips, drinking the shimmering liquid in a single, swift motion. The taste was unlike anything she had ever experienced, both sweet and bitter, like the memories of a love long lost. For a moment, nothing happened. Ilara sat in silence, her heart pounding in her chest, wondering if it had all been a cruel trick. But then, slowly, she began to hear a sound, faint at first but growing clearer with each passing second. It was a voice, familiar and beloved, speaking her name. Ilara! She gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as she recognized the voice. Kale? Yes, my love, it's me. The voice was soft, gentle, as if coming from a great distance. I am sorry I could not return to you, but I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Even in my final moments, you were all I thought of. Tears flowed freely down Ilara's cheeks as she listened to the voice that she had longed to hear for so many years. I never stopped loving you either, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I missed you every day, Kale. Every single day. I know, my love, Kale's voice replied, filled with tenderness. And I am so sorry for the pain I caused you. But you must know that you were the light of my life, the one thing that made everything worthwhile. I only wish I could have come back to you, to live out the life we dreamed of. Ilara closed her eyes, imagining Kale standing before her, his hand reaching out to touch her face, just as he had so many times before. I wish you could have too, she said, her voice breaking. But I am grateful for this, for the chance to say goodbye. I love you, Kale. I always will. And I love you, Ilara, Kale's voice echoed softly. But you must move on, my love. You have a life to live, a life that is still full of beauty and joy. Do not let my absence keep you from finding happiness. I will always be with you, in your heart, in your memories. But you must let go. Ilara nodded, even though she knew Kale could not see her. She felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of peace that she had not felt in years. I will try, she promised. I will try to live, to find happiness again. Thank you, Kale. Thank you for loving me. Goodbye, my love, Kale's voice whispered, growing fainter with each word. Be happy. Be free. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the voice was gone. Ilara opened her eyes, feeling the emptiness where Kale's presence had been, but also a profound sense of calm. She knew now that he was at peace, and in a way, so was she. Over the following weeks, Ilara found herself smiling more often. She continued her work, but now there was a lightness to it, a new sense of purpose. She began to venture out into the city more, reconnecting with old friends and even making new ones. The sadness that had once consumed her was still there, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it had become a part of her, a thread in the tapestry of her life that made her who she was. And as the years passed, Ilara did find happiness again. It was not the same as the love she had shared with Kale, but it was real, and it was hers. She never forgot him, of course, how could she, but she no longer clung to the past with desperate hands. She had said her goodbyes, and in doing so, she had set herself free. One day, many years later, as Ilara stood in her workshop, an old, worn box on a shelf caught her eye. She took it down and opened it, her fingers brushing against the empty vial and the letter that had brought her so much comfort. She smiled softly, her heart filled with warmth as she whispered a quiet thank you to the man who had given her so much, even in death. And as she placed the box back on the shelf, she knew that love, in all its forms, was eternal. It might change, it might fade, but it never truly died. It lived on in the memories, in the heart, and in the echoes of those who had come before. And in that knowledge, Ilara found peace. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments or if there's anything else you'd like.